Start. Now we can talk about Kelly. Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
Alright, we're going to have a little fun today and some new stuff that I'm actually kind of rolling out. Part of today is a couple of different things, a little bit on self, kind of where I came from and where I am now, because I want you guys to see the possibilities in what 10 short years can do to your business if your mindset changes a little bit in what you're doing. A lot of times we get into this, which before I start, which one of these things do you guys think, or what order should it be in? We actually defined this last night, and I've had a couple of different agents I've talked to about it. So how many of you guys think that money is the number one goal in investing or in real estate? Nope. How about tactics? How about this one? All right. Okay. What do you think the next one is?
Tactics.
Mm-hmm.
Money, balance, and then
Here's why. If you don't know what you're shooting for, whether you want to invest, whether you can invest, whether you're ready to invest, and understanding the goals. So we talked to an agent yesterday, which was an awkward conversation when I sent her an email back yesterday. She walked into my office, which is weird. But she came into my office, she's like, I have this client that wants to sell, and this, that, and the other. So I walked her through some things, and then she came back, she's like, do you want to buy this? But she wouldn't give me the numbers on it. And then she sent me an email this morning and says, I don't have any money, and I have bad credit, but I want to be part of this investment. Okay, you need to focus on income first. So in defining goals, you talk about the investment mindset, and we want that to start in the investment mindset, but you have to have some income goals before you go down the investment road, right? Because if you don't have any income, you don't have anything to support, you don't have anything for down payments, you don't have some of those things that you're going to need. So we want to make sure that we're defining both income goals and investment goals. Does anybody own any investment properties in here? Nope, not yet. You do. Rental, you have one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How many do you have, Steve?
I just have a couple.
Just a couple? Okay. When did you buy those?
This year again.
Okay, this year?
Okay.
And you were last year, right?
I think 4 months ago. 5
Okay,
months ago.
okay. So the tactics part is kind of going through mindset of understanding the investment side, which is what we're going to go through today, and understanding the tactics when we go through, and the way I've shifted my business is about connecting dots. So many of us get into the business and it's commission breath, and it's all about the sale rather than how do we connect the dots and solve problems for people. And once you have your tactics in place, whether you can wholesale, I have a lot of agents that bring me deals that are off market that we'll pay cash for, they still get paid and they don't have to do anything, at the end of the day. So that's a tactic. That's part of it. If somebody has the hoarding house that you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? I don't want to put this on the market. There's a tactic there to connect the dot off market. And then the balance is really balancing out the difference between income and investment. And at the very end of that, how many of you guys want to do flips? Okay. That is the very end goal. Because I can tell you right now, flipping is gambling. I can say that because when you gamble enough, you tend to lose a little bit. We've lost as much as 50 grand on a house, and it is not fun. But you do numbers, and it's different. But you don't want to do flips and not have that law of average at the end of the day. So flips are great because they generate buyers, they generate leads. Like my lead generation is the 25 mortgage payments I'm paying and the 25 signs that I have in the yard and what we're generating over owning those properties for 6 months. But you also have to be able to have the income and the balance when it comes down to doing that, because you can get yourself in trouble pretty quick. All right. Here's a couple of things. Follow me on Instagram. I do more Instagram stories. I do a lot of stuff on both. Either way, take your pick. The phone number that's up here, if you guys have something that you want me to look at that is possibly a deal and you're not ready to invest in it, but it's something that you either need a quick solution for or whatnot, that text there will actually send you a link back that you can put all the information for the property in it, and then we'll take a look at it. I can close on things in 48 hours when it comes down to it if it's something that's, hey, this person needs to get out of this. We had after I taught this class the last time, Fawn Star is an agent out of the West Valley. She called some wholesaler, screwed her over, and wanted a $25,000 reduction the day before closing, and we were able to go in and knock it out in 24 hours for her. So that's some of the stuff. Can somebody tell me why does everybody start in real estate, or everybody come from another industry? Why did you get your license?
It's been my dream job,
Okay. Why your dream job?
working with people, helping people.
Nothing to do with money?
No, it really wasn't.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's the first. How about you guys?
I was law enforcement.
Okay. And then why did you get into real estate from law enforcement?
I retired and wanted to work for myself, not answer to anybody else, come and go as I please, and make as much as I wanted to or as little as I wanted,
Sure.
depending on how much I wanted to put
Gotcha.
into it.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
How about you?
Well, ditto what he said, he drugged me with him, so I retired from education and I always wanted to be a real estate agent. I went to school in California actually way early on, and then came here and did it here because it's always been in the back of my mind that I wanted to help
Okay.
people buy and sell.
Got it. Steve?
Mine was definitely money.
Okay. That's typically what you most of the time hear from people. When I interview new agents in the office, they come in and their goal is to make $100,000 the first year, and they don't realize the blood, sweat, and tears that it takes in this business and what you need to do going forward. I spent the first 2 years of my business, I was super fortunate. My dad had been in the business for 40 years, and my dad was a good old boy from Tennessee and refused to feed me with a silver spoon. So the first 2 years in the business, I worked for $8 an hour sitting at the corner of his desk, listening to his conversations. I was not allowed to have any commissions. I showed buyers, he wrote contracts, and I got paid $8 an hour with some gas money. That's how I learned though. And so a lot of these people that come in and they look at splits and different things, sometimes the teams and the aspects, you're actually paying for education and support at the end of the day, and you don't have all the business expense on the other side of it. When I originally got in, I became a real estate agent because I was done being a grease monkey. I came from the automotive field. I had a Class A CDL. I used to go down to the auction on Saturday and pick up this guy's junk that he bought at auction, and then I had to fix it. And that got really old. I was blessed that somebody stole all my tools from that job, and I got a big insurance check, and I was out. I went to work for my dad for $8 an hour to figure out the business. I'm like, I want to try it. But I started because I wanted to get out of a different industry, and I think a lot of people get into real estate because they want out of what they were in, and they think that they can make a better income, which you certainly can, depending on how hard you hustle and how many open houses you do and those types of things. It can also be a very discouraging business at the end of the day. So when I got in, it was about money. I had a mentor. I don't know that I would have gotten the business had my dad not been there and he had not done it for so long. And we were realty executives, back when realty executives was a thing. Top team worldwide for a couple of years. So this is kind of my funny slide. How many years in the business? Everybody less than 5? Most everybody less than 5? Okay. That's good. And here's why I say that. In the 20 years, I've been licensed since 99. And in the 20 years I've been in the business, my dad told me before he passed that I've seen more changes and shifts in the business in that 20 years period than he ever saw. And my dad lived through 18% interest. My dad lived through some of the worst economies when it came down to it, but he always stayed in the business because he was creative and he understood that not everything was about commission, it was about creativity, and you get paid for more creativity. So I put this up here because every time we had Mastermind in the past, everybody likes to bring up the iBuyer. And the iBuyer is still a solution for some people, and I still tell some people, hey, that is by far the best thing you're going to get. And that's okay. We're not going to be that for everybody. But does everybody understand the zoo? That's what I coined them to be, Zillow, OfferPad, and Open Door. Their buy boxes are very, very small. Zillow won't buy anything with aluminum wiring. They're all capped at the $500,000 range. They're all capped at lot sizes, and they're just going to be there. And we're getting to be the real estate agent, not that I want to say extinct, but if we can't connect the dots and provide solutions, we tend not to add value to our clients at the end of the day. And that's what we have to be looking for. Like I said, the off-market type thing, Zillow is not going to buy half the crap that I buy because they don't buy older homes, they don't buy weird stuff. And so you got to look at some of that stuff. So that's off the table for a lot of clients. So now where else can you connect the dot, whether it be a wholesaler, somebody like myself? So it's about finding solutions for the clients. This excerpt is from Who Moved My Cheese. Everybody read that book? You don't have to read it. It's a short 11-minute YouTube video, but it's awesome. I don't have the picture up here. The premise behind the book is you had 4 characters in it. They were two little people and 2 mice, and him and Haw, and I forget the mice name. Anyway, they would leave every morning and they'd put their shoes on and they'd run through this maze. And there was this big pile of cheese and that's where they ate. That's the real estate market right now. So everybody would run to the same pile of cheese. Well, the mice would step back and realize that it was starting to dwindle. So in the mornings, they would still do the same thing every day. Well, the little people got super lazy and they started walking. And one day they showed up and there was no more cheese left. And the mice had already been out looking for the next pile of cheese. And you see there's actually a picture or a visual where the little people are standing there. Hem and Haw are pissed because somebody ate all their cheese. Somebody moved their cheese. That is real estate agents right now. The zoo is moving the cheese. The wholesalers are moving the cheese. All these different pieces. So the only way we move where the cheese is by adding value to our clients, by connecting the dots. This is probably one of the most important things that I can tell you guys is that, and kind of backing up to my first slide on why you got your license, to help people to do this business, and it's exciting and to make money. But a lot of times we get in the business and we forget that we are our first and most important client, and that this business and the license that you have provides opportunities day in, day out. The problem is we're so focused on commission and we're so commission driven that we miss the opportunities. This is a picture of my dad, and so this is a couple of different things for me. My dad was extremely limited in his mindset when it came down to it, and he forgot that he was his most important client. So during the trustee sale, well, let me back up a little bit. 2007, we had a partnership. We sold, I think, 800 homes that year. By the end of 2007, I think my mom was taking closed fist swings at my wife in the office because we were out. We'd lost $1 million in cash and assets when the market started to go down, and we were personally guaranteed on $1 million worth of debt that we were stuck in. And my dad and I had a disagreement, and I had 2 toddlers and a wife, and I was out. And so that tanked some of their plans, whatever it was, but I had to start over. What I realized was back in that market, I wasn't being my most important client, and we had gotten into the construction side and a bunch of different things, and it caused us to tank. I mean, it caused our family to tank. 2008, I broke my neck, was almost paralyzed, and then I went into the REO business. I was blessed by that, and we paid everything back in 2012. But here's what I missed in that time period. Because everybody's running scared, I wasn't running towards opportunities, and I wasn't showing people to run towards opportunities. You could buy, I can't tell you how many homes I sold in Maryville for $19,000 that were 4 walls, a roof, and a carport, and you could have leased it to homeless people and been way ahead of the game right now. And there was a lot of smart people. So bringing up to speed, during that time, my dad went into the trustee sale business. He sold 900 homes from trustee sale during that 4-year period of time to investors. Not one did he buy for himself. But he was the most sought after person in the industry to do trustee sale. And he spent his whole life working for these big investors, and their portfolios are almost quadrupled, if not 5 times value right now from what they were in 2008. And the one big investor that my dad worked the last 5 years of his life for literally promised my dad the world if he kept his prices low. He was managing properties, 350 homes at $25 to $50 a month, and keeping all these prices low because this investor promised him the world when he went to sell the homes. And when my dad died, he gave my mom the big middle finger, and he pulled all of his stuff and left. So all the work that my dad had done for this man that he promised was no longer. So all the faith that he put in that person was gone because he didn't put enough faith in himself to take the risk and go through that. So that's why I say, I had a conversation with an investor yesterday. I will work with you and we will both make money, but I will not work for you. And that's extremely important for you guys to understand, because that same investor just went to, anybody familiar with Than Merrill?
Yeah.
Okay. Than Merrill does fortune builders. I probably shouldn't say that on camera. Oh well. It's an extremely expensive, like these people refinance their house to pay for this course, 30 grand for a 3-day course plus some ongoing coaching. And what they teach in that course is to go get new young agents like you and ask you to write 100 contracts a day so that they can buy something at 50 cents on the dollar. I can tell you right now, when I work with my investors, we talk about if I'm going to do that much work, you're probably not going to see anything that I buy at 50 cents on the dollar. It's just not going to happen. Because I've put in the time, I have the education, I'm willing to build wealth with you, but I'm not willing to do it for you, not for a commission. It's just not how we work. So I say that to really get you guys understand the mindset. You guys are going to, how many of you guys have gone to listings, sold something, and then wished you would have? It would have been a good investment property. I should have done, I wished I would have approached that differently. The very first home that we bought was a Zillow lead in 2014, and it was the first time I had this gut-wrenching, like, I'm scared to lose this listing, to ask the question. And it was probably worth 150, 160. His mom had just died, and he was getting ready to go back to North Carolina. I said, what if I give you 100 grand for it? That's what rolled off my tongue, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna lose this listing. He says, give me 105, and I'm out. He signed the contract on the hood, and he was gone. Now at that time, I'm looking at the market going, okay, I bought a little bit below. I didn't know where I was gonna get the money, I had no idea. But I told him I'd pay cash for it, and I walked away with a contract, and I have a very good mentor that had quite a bit of money that he lent me to buy that house. But here's the crazy thing, is that 5 short years later, that house is worth 250 grand. I borrowed hard money on it, refinanced it, I have nothing into that asset. And it's worth $125,000, $130,000 more than I bought it because of time. So you think about in your career, if you go through and you define your goals, where do you want your income at, and where do you want to invest in? Because real estate is the one and only investment that you can make with leverage and have somebody else pay off over time. If you buy $200,000 worth of stocks, you have to put $200,000 into stocks. Those stocks can go to zero. Real estate might go to 20 grand, but it's not going to go to zero, right? Mm-hmm. And if it gets really bad, cats and candles work really well. You go through it. I wished when I was 20 or 23, bought my first house in 99, sold it in the height being 23, got 200 grand cash for some investor that we worked with. Here's the crappy part of it. Had I done what I'm teaching now, that house, I sold it for 200, it's now worth 275. Had I rode through the down market, it went back down to 140, I paid 107 for it. But it would have been 23 years paid off, and I would have had a $275,000 asset that's almost free and clear, had I let time take its course. So real estate has always healed itself, and right now we're in the 4th highest rental market in the country. We are, that same first house that I bought is 1,100 square feet with a carport at 19th Avenue in Thunderbird. It rents for $1,500 a month. Cash flow is $750 a month right now. So you got to get in the mindset of not looking at houses at the front door or putting your sign in the yard, but is there an opportunity here to invest? Or what are the questions I need to ask going into it? So I always try to reverse a little bit. And again, not to take advantage. I don't take advantage of anybody. I think that there's some wholesalers that do a good job of being a solution, and I think there's a lot of douchebag wholesalers out there that are really grinding on people and trying to act like they're solving problems, and they're not. And so I always go in, Listing's kind of the last resort, but how do I solve their problem to the best? And you'd be amazed that if you ask the right questions and go through things, I always start with what would you like to net? If you don't have to pay commissions or closing costs, what would you like to net in the sale of this property? If you could net that in the next 7 to 10 days without doing anything, what would your price be? Because I have investors that potentially would be interested. What that does is it kind of gives you a couple of different things. It gives you a baseline on listing, because now you kind of know their bottom line, right? Gives you a baseline. It also gives you motivation, and you know what problem you're trying to solve for. See, a lot of times when somebody calls to sell, we don't take the time to figure out what their story is. If you figure out what their story is and why they're doing what they're doing, you get a lot further ahead with that client, rather than, I watched this for years. Again, I was taught by my dad. I used to go on listing appointments. In fact, it was so funny. My dad had his listing appointments so dialed in, he fell asleep during one. Out cold, snoring at the table. Because he would flip through this book, and he had it so memorized and so prone. But there was never a lot of, so what's your story? What are you doing? What are you trying to accomplish? Because once you know those things, it's easier for you to, what I handcraft a real estate solution based on their uniqueness. Where are we going? What do we need to do? How do we need to get there? Rather than going in as a sales pitch of, how do I put on the best listing presentation? I mean, I literally don't have a listing presentation anymore. I don't talk about what we've done. I don't talk about our sales. I just try to talk about solving the problem. That's it. Kind of quoted this already. I don't want you to look back and have regrets. The woulda, coulda, shoulda. I have regrets for some of the stuff I've sold. I have regrets for stuff I didn't buy. I still wish in 2014 I had bought more, but back then I was still scared of it. But you start looking at how, again, your tactics, your goals. Some of your goals are defining, how old are you?
28.
What was your name?
Dylan.
So you're 28. So at the age of 50, how much passive income would you like to have, mailbox money, a month? You don't have to go millionaire crazy stuff.
I mean, a couple hundred.
A month?
Oh, a month. Sorry. A month? I don't know. I mean,
Would you be good if you had 7 to 10 grand a month in mailbox money coming in, 100 grand a year? Didn't have to do anything.
yeah.
Okay.
I think anyone would take it.
Right. We all have big goals. I mean, I'll share with you my big goal. I'm 9 years from it. I got a lot of work to do, but my goal is to own 50 homes at the age of 50, producing $50,000 a month in income. That's the goal. We're 35 homes into it in the last 4 years, and it's been through creativity, seeing opportunity, and figuring out that this is where we want to go. Obviously, I have to keep income flowing because the income is what's paying those assets off. But that's the goal. Will I get there? I hope so. But it's a big, hairy goal. So you think about that at 28, so that you can start mentally preparing how many houses do I want to buy? When do they need to be paid off? What price range do they need to be in? So that you can get to that passive piece. Good news about real estate, you can do it until you die. So it doesn't mean you have to stop, but it's nice to have that passive income and the assets paid down with that goal. Some people I've met, they're like, I'd like to have 5 producing $5,000 a month income. That's great. Can we go bigger? But some people are comfortable with certain things. What you don't want to be is at age 70 and going, I still need to. Have anybody been to Sun City recently? They're still having to go out and do open houses at age 70. I am not doing open houses at age 70. I do not want to. That does not sound appealing. I think they pick up most of their clients when they pass out or they kick it at their bridge clubs, and then they go pill for the family. But yeah, it's amazing in Sun City. You're like, oh my God, these people, I can't do it. So, but I don't want you to be at that age and going, I wished I would have done something different 30, 40 years ago. Because by then the assets paid off. 1031 exchanges, there's a lot of stuff that gives you flexibility. So, opportunity mindset. It's not an opportunity to steal. It's not an opportunity to take advantage of somebody. It's an opportunity to help somebody and solve somebody's problem. That's where we come into play with stuff. That's how I base my business. It's an opportunity when I serve the agents, when they bring me something, because I can serve. They win, They become the hero. I'm not, but it was a resource that they used to be the hero to their client. And I think we bought 5 properties from agents last month that brought them to us that were opportunities. The mindset is walking into a house that looks like that. That was actually one we bought last year. Here's something to listen to. A lot of people have this mindset when you get your real estate license that you have a fiduciary, which you do, right? When somebody calls you asking for the fiduciary. But when somebody calls and says, I need 50 grand in 48 hours for this house, can you do it? The only thing is, who do I make the check out to? They didn't ask me for what the value was, and I don't have to go through those processes because they wanted me to solve the problem. They didn't want me to tell them how to sell the house. That was a 6-figure flip. Didn't do anything to it, 7 days. I turned around and sold it to a builder. But it's because people know that I can solve the problem, and people should know that you can connect the dots. So I try to tell people, hey, I have solutions. Even if you don't have the cash, it's always I have the solutions to provide whatever it is that you need, and then go find it. Say yes and then figure it out later. That's what Grant Cardone says. And I've learned that. You say yes and go, oh crap, now what? I mean, I remember canceling a deal on a 5-acre parcel 3 times because I didn't know where I was going to get the money. And finally, an investor stepped up to the plate after the seller gave me a $40,000 reduction on it, and we closed on it. We sold it to a builder, but it was saying yes, and then going, oh, okay, now what? This is scary. But there's people like myself. You get in that situation. There's other investors here in my home group. It's like, I got this deal, and I don't know what to do with it. I'll walk you through it. Okay? It's all in what you look at. How many of you guys use Monsoon when you're doing comps? Okay. If you learn to look at properties from 30,000 feet rather than from the front door, the sidewalk, or the interior, you'll see some things a little different. This is a house that we currently bought. Oh, this came from Instagram. I'm trying to remember how okay. So, I'm good at my stories, right? So, we bought this half-acre parcel, and the way that house is set, we went down to the city, we looked at it from bird's eye view. We were actually, because it was set so far to the east, we paid $200 grand for it. We'll have about $35,000 in the renovation, but we were able to split the lot, and my wife's building a brand new home on the second lot. So everything has opportunity, but you've got to look at it from a different perspective. What could it be? So another instance is, how many of you ever asked the question of a seller that owns something free and clear, what will you be doing with the money? Where's that money going to go? Believe it or not, there's a lot of people, they just want to sell the house either because it's a pain in the ass or because they need the money for something, but you'd be amazed at some people that don't need the money for something. That's opportunity for seller carries. Everybody familiar with seller financing? So that's opportunity when it comes down to it. I love to solve equations. It's actually some of the stuff I've started posting in my Facebook is real estate's an equation, right? We have variables of houses, locations, conditions, people, situations, and until you know all the variables, you can't really solve the problem, right? So you've got to go through that with people and figure out how do we solve for their desire. They either have a desire to move up or move down, right? And that's kind of the traditional side of things. They have a difficulty, like the last house. That 6-figure flip that I did, the people hadn't been to the house in 17 years. Nobody'd opened the front door. I don't know how it survived all those markets with nobody being there, but it was 17 years. So we want to solve or for their dilemma. What's going on? How do you help? So finding out what those 3 things are will give you the direction on where to go with it. I think it's really important. How many of you guys have experienced more and more with the lack of, I want to say, professionalism or camaraderie with cross-sale agents, right? I think if we want to take the market back from the iBuyers, the wholesalers, those types of things, I think we do a better job of creating relationships with each other to where we can connect the dots, to where we can solve problems. It's the one thing right now that's actually been kind of funny is all the assets that we have right now. I have one of two choices when it comes down to really putting them out there to the masses, and it's either put them in MLS and I have to deal with this and 4-page benzers and just stuff that's frustrating, right? And you get a lot of people that tend to go to their closet and put their cape on in the morning and their mask, and they want to be Superman at the end of the day, and it drives us crazy because you can't get to a win-win that way. Or we started putting things for sale by owner on Zillow, and that's been super fun between the wholesalers and the agents that live in Scottsdale that specialize in Maryville on their phone calls. But the ultimate is having relationships with each other inside my home group, being able to reach out and being able to connect the dots and figure out how can we work together to solve the problem for the client. And the more relationships you have and the more people know that you can solve the problem, the more effective you're going to be for your clients, for yourself, for your income. And one of the reasons this picture is in here, I mean, everybody knows George and you may not know his face. George and I have a funny partnership in how it started. And it was, George and I knew each other from the REO days. And my dad was sick on his deathbed, and I knew that the office building they were in was going to go. So I started looking at commercial leases. I'm like, oh my God, these things are so expensive. So I stopped by George's office to harass him one day. I walked in, and he's pressed up against a file cabinet. He's outgrowing his space. I said, we should buy a building. And that was actually how we got married, is we bought a commercial building. We've had a lot of people ask, like, why would you put your teams next door to each other? And at the time, I was with a different company. He was with my home group, so he kind of convinced me to come over here. So it was easier to label the whole building my home group. But what's been interesting is the relationship that's happened, even with another real estate agent. We've done more business and more deals together as teams and together as families than I would have ever done without them. And some people, this was kind of something that I switched gears from watching my dad over the years. Some people want to do the second grader, put their folder up on their desk and kind of hide everything they're doing, and I'm an open book. And George and I have figured out how to partner on a lot of different things. You're going to find friends and people you want to align with that make it easier to partner on things. It's made it easier for us to own vacation homes. It's made us easier to invest in different things, including the building. I couldn't have bought it on my own. It also spreads out the risk at the end of the day. Although he's gotten so big with Zillow offers that I can't find a parking space anymore. Investment mindset versus realtor mindset. We get in as a realtor, but we have to start thinking of the investment mindset and starting to think of what we can invest in, how we can invest in it, and what's it going to look like for our future, because commissions are going to run out eventually, and they're a roller coaster, they're up and down, right? So eventually we want to have that investment side to give us some of that that ability to take off. And it's also the ability to invest in what you know. I think it's interesting that the wholesale industry, everybody knows what a wholesaler is, right? They usually don't wear socks, they wear shiny suit, they drive Lamborghinis. Okay. That's what Instagram says. Right, they're all cash investors. But what's funny about that is that they show all the shiny objects from income, from lifestyle, from these different things. But they all say you can get into real estate without getting a license, and then they struggle to figure out. But the reality is, with a real estate license, it entitles you to be in front of more opportunities. Because people are calling you because you do real estate. You're not knocking on their door saying, I'll pay cash for your house. So it's a little different thing where we get a license in order to have opportunity in the business, and that's what's important. Because now with a license, you think about the wholesalers, I think it's so backwards. If they had a license, what other income could they produce if somebody wasn't going to sell in the house but they did want to sell it? Could they refer it to an agent? Could they list it themselves? I can do any and all. I have a license to do anything at this point, so I can solve that client's problem. A lot of the wholesalers get something locked up contract-wise, they throw shit against the wall and they hope it sticks. and then it doesn't. So, no clicking. So everybody heard, which song is it? Eminem's song from 8 Mile. The very beginning of it, he talks about you have one shot, you have one opportunity. And that's what this business is really about. You have one shot, you have one opportunity, and you don't want to lose it. And, he talks about his...
Lose yourself in the music.
Right? Lose yourself in the music. His palms are sweaty. All those things, feel like he wants to throw up. That's how I felt when I bought my first investment. That's what I felt, because you are scared to death of it. I've lost everything once, so I know what it feels like. So it's probably like, if it happens again, I know how to recover from it. But, the first 10 years of my life, I spent learning it. The last 10 years of in between 10 and 15, I spent figuring out how to get back to it. And the last 5 years, I figured out how to connect the dots and not necessarily be a salesperson, but be a problem solver. So people call and you start looking at, how do I solve and how do I make their life better? And if you do that, I guarantee you the income will come from that opportunity, rather than taking advantage of situations and those types of things. So last thing I want to kind of get into, 225 sometimes. So I don't have the presentation up, but I'm going to walk you through. Where the frick is the eraser? There it is. Yeah. I asked Kelly for a speaker, she didn't have it. My go-to song right there. Okay. When you start looking at investment properties, and here's kind of the order that I would suggest too. Like I said before, flipping is gambling. It takes money. You have to know money. You have to understand what the construction side of it is. I'm super spoiled because my wife is a contractor, so I don't have to deal with any of that crap. I don't deal with crews. I don't deal with design. Nothing. I just have to find the problem that's out there. She can solve it, and then the team takes it to market. So I'm just responsible for the front end and knowing the numbers. The start is always this. Having a target for what you think you want to invest in. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of scenarios, and I want you to tell me if you think it's a good or bad investment. Okay? Surprise. $475 price point, 3,200 square feet, 3 AC units, a pool, 3-car garage. It rents for $2,200 a month. Good or bad?
Bad.
Okay, good call. Some agent just sold somebody that house out in Surprise and brought it to the property management company. And they paid cash. And it took 3 months to get it rented finally. I could have sold them two $200,000 homes and they would have produced $1,000 more a month of income. So, 3-2, 1-car carport, single AC unit, no pool, $225,000, rents for $1,500 a month. Good or bad?
Good.
Okay. One of the things when you buy rental properties, here's the 5 things I look at for long term. Now, there's a couple of different things because you have long term, you have short term, which is kind of like holding on to a short term flip. Like, I know I'm going to sell that down the road when the tenant gets out or whatever the case may be. A lot of times we buy houses with tenants in them because we got a good deal on it, but it's not something I'm going to put a 30-year mortgage on. I'm going to use hard money on it, and I'll kind of walk through that. But here's the 5 things I don't buy. Absolutely no pools. This is my buy box that I'm sharing with you. This comes from a couple of different things. We manage 250 homes. I've done a lot of data over the last couple of years of what's producing, where people are staying the longest, and what's producing the most income at the end of the day net. Anybody know why I don't like tile roofs?
Expensive to replace.
Expensive to replace. Tile roofs are cosmetic. They're pretty. That's all they are. The roof is actually the paper that's underneath them. A lot of the houses built in 1990, which is kind of where the tile roof started, they're at that point where the paper needs to be replaced, which means you have to pull all the tile back, replace the paper. It's almost double what a comp shingle roof costs. The other reason that I kind of stay away from no tile roofs It's because they usually come with an HOA. $50 a month times 12 months times 30 years is 18 grand. Times 10 homes is $180,000 asset that you pissed away over your portfolio. It's an entire house. So that's why I stay away from HOAs. The other thing too is the HOA is the tattletale in the neighborhood, right? You get weed letters, you get parking. Like, I don't care if you park in my front yard or no HOA. As long as you're keeping it up, park wherever you want. I don't care. Paying your rent? Fine. It's no city violations. Okay, so no HOA because it's the worst. And you don't get any benefit out of it. Some people think that, well, the HOA is going to help maintain the beauty of the neighborhood. Well, yeah, it looks pretty, but the houses aren't worth any less in that 19th Avenue in Thunderbird because there's no HOA. Yeah, there's some crappy houses and there's some good houses, but there's some crappy houses inside the HOA that you can't see. Condos, again, not a big fan of for a couple of reasons. One, the HOA fees are usually super expensive. And what happens with those HOA fees is some people are like, oh yeah, but it maintains everything. They're maintaining the roof and the exterior paint. How often do you think in 30 years you're going to have to replace a roof and exterior paint on a house? Right? So the condos, typically, you know, that $150 a month range, you're also paying for somebody else's utilities, which you don't get to recover. Okay? And there's another one, and I'm drawing a blank. Oh, sorry. Okay, we talked about smaller, older homes. That's kind of 6. I swear I can count. I'm good at math. Smaller, older homes. What happens with that 3,200 square foot house that has 3 AC units and a pool? What do you think your long-term liabilities are of that house? You have 3 AC units that can break, that have to be replaced. The worst part is that when somebody moves out, you have 3,200 square feet of flooring and paint, which is $3,200 in paint and another $3 grand in flooring. So if that tenant turns, and think about this too, in that price range of rental, do you really think that person's going to be there for 5 years? Probably not, right? So that house is going to turn more often. We had an investor 2 years ago, and this is kind of where you look at long-term, short-term. Bought a great deal in Buckeye. 4,000 square feet, 3 AC units, but he got a good deal at trustee sale. Problem is that 4,000 square foot house rented for $1,600 a month, and the tenants turned every year and trashed the inside of it every year. So by the time the money he collected that year on a cash-on-cash return was like 0.2%, because all the income had to go back into repairing it for the next tenant. Sorry. We sold his 4,000 square foot house and bought him a 1,300 square foot house at 56th Avenue in Northern. That house rents for $50 less a month than his Buckeye house did. It's 1,200 square feet. So the smaller homes, the older neighborhoods, my geographic, where I like as far as Phoenix goes, everything is north of Northern, all the way out to the 101. And then we're down to about 7th Street and out to the 101 in the west. And here's the data on that. Our tenant on average is 5 years in a house. So if I can keep a tenant in for 5 years and only have to turn it 6 times in a lifetime on it, it's pretty inexpensive. To where some people in Surprise, Buckeye, they're more transient as far as moving because they want to move closer in. And it's just, it has nothing to do with neighborhoods. It has to do with data that we've seen over the last 5 years from the property management company. The other thing that's extremely critical, anybody want to be a slumlord?
No.
Okay. I've met those people. That jerk investor that my dad worked for was a slumlord. He used to brag about some old people he had in Canada that still had 30-year-old carpet in their place. And he thought it was funny. When we do our rentals, when we buy them, we actually go through and renovate them fully. New kitchens, new baths, new everything, for a couple of different reasons. So we renovate them for this reason. Tenants will stay longer and consider that their home if it's nice. And we get a greater rate of return from that. The value's increased, and that is extremely important when it comes down to our average tenant right now is 5 to 6 years. They still haven't put in their notices, and their rents are all at market rent, but they also know that I'm going to take care of my stuff when it comes down to it. If the AC keeps breaking, put a new one on. Like, those are just things. And some of those things too, when you come down to ACs and some of the things that people like, I don't want to invest. You know, we've all had those clients who are like, I don't want to invest because of the repairs. What are the two biggest repairs on a house?
AC and roof, right?
AC and roof. It's 12 grand between the two of them on a 1,300 square foot house that you probably have to do once in the lifetime of owning it. And if you pray to God for another hailstorm, you may not have to pay for it. The investors got super wealthy off the hailstorm when that happened. Those are the two things. So you think about that over a 30-year period of time, it's $500 a year for those two major repairs. Okay, so this is long-term. So when I look at my long-term, the 35 homes we own, those are long-term. They have 30-year mortgages on them. We've refinanced them. They have equity in them. And here's the other thing, too. When you're buying investments, you don't buy just to buy. I had a conversation with actually Justin McClellan last night. And he's like, I really need to buy a rental property. I'm like, you don't need to buy a rental property. You need to be prepared for the opportunity to happen. And this is where some people kind of lose a little bit. We're always looking for the opportunity to buy something below market in order to create equity. And it's something that I created. It's called the equity method. And I'll give you a quick glimpse into it. It can be extremely complicated. Does anybody think I put 20% down on all these houses?
No.
Okay, because I'm not that wealthy. Okay. The equity method is, and I'm going to give you super simple at first. Let's say you go to Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Okay. Their house is worth $200. Put it on the market, 30 days to market it, 30 days for escrow. In this price range, would you all agree it's probably a 10% cost of sale because somebody's going to ask for closing costs. Might be 9.5 if they gave you a 2.5% co-broke. But I'm supposed to be funny. So here's what happens. You're 20K, and let's say you think it needs $5 grand in repairs, and they're going to have 3 months of holding costs, let's say another $5K. $170. I told you I was good at math. Okay. We're at 170 grand, like when they're done. That's what they're going to get out of it, right? It's not a hard conversation if somebody is motivated, they've got a bunch of equity, and you said, hey, you know what? If I can get an investor to pay $150,000 and close on it cash, not have to do anything, would that appeal to you? More often than not, you'll find that people are willing to do that. You just have to ask the questions and be prepared to ask questions. If they're not, okay, great, we'll put it on the market, right? But if you don't ask, you're never going to know. Here's the thing. 2 years ago, does anybody know the seasoning required for refinancing based on appraised value?
6 months.
0. 2 years ago, this is how I discovered this. 2 years ago, the lender guidelines changed, and it used to be you had to hold the house for 12 months before you could refinance it based on appraised value. If you closed on this house at $150,000 securing a hard money loan on it, you can refinance it into a 30-year fix based on appraised value the very next day. So do you know what that does? This $50,000 spread, see, is your down payment. And you therefore end up with an asset with 0 money in it and 25% equity. That's why I say you have to be prepared for opportunities and understand the math behind it versus just going out and going, I need 20% down, where is this going to happen? Nope. You need to be prepared to say yes to somebody that you can buy some equity. This is how we've acquired our portfolio over the last 5 years, by doing this method. Now, there's a more complicated method, which I won't get into, where we find something, some of you guys are like, well, what happens if it's trash and needs repairs? Well, you either have good money sources that are willing to trust you and lend over it to do the repairs, or you do first and second mortgages, which we've done, but you can also do value add. So we have a house in Munns Park. We paid $360 for it. We put $130,000 in renovation into it, but we secured a first and a second mortgage for those 2 deals. It's got to be purchase money, by the way. If you don't do purchase money at time of closing, you're considered cash out on that 130 grand. So you can't go and get another loan after closing. You have to do it at time of closing. Okay, so you have that first and second, however you structure it. There's a lot of different complications to it. But then it's all considered purchase money. That house later, it appraised for $650. And so we had no repair money into it, no hard money loan in it, and we have 0 into that asset, and we still have equity in it. We use that equity for the down payment. So don't look at the myth that you have to have 20% down. Now, let's say you've got 10 grand and this appraises for 190, right? Where are my zeros here? Holy cow. Let's say it appraises for 190. Well, you've got $40,000 in equity. You now have to bring $10,000 to the table and close on it. Better than 50, right? That's where it is. So what I always tell people is don't go hunt for it, but be prepared for it. And that again goes for mindset. Hey, I know I want to invest. I know what my buy box looks like. If you have this target and you know what you want, do you think you can all of a sudden see something different when you go to a listing appointment? Oh, this might be the ideal rental property. I wonder if I could, because look, you're already 10% of the way down. You can use your commission and the other agent's commission and closing costs as 20 grand worth of down payment on a property. They're going to pay it one way or another, right? Now, again, this goes back to balance and income. You may not be ready for this, so you need to do a listing or something of that nature. So you have to look at where you're at in life, and that's why I said, look at your goals, look at your tactics, look at your balance, and look at your money. Because you don't want to be getting into this, like, I don't have any money, you know what I mean? So, but again, the market right now is giving us that 6 to 7 to 10% towards down payment already, if you can utilize the cost of sale in the process. You guys have questions on that, or are you confused?
I have a question for
Shoot.
you about once you refinance out of it,
Yep.
how much cash flow do you want to see monthly per property for you to consider that,
Great
or is that
question.
a consideration?
Great question. I don't have that consideration. It goes back to, again, income. We have a structured income. We have multiple streams of income between the contracting side, the flips, the different things, our sales commission. So we have that under wraps. But most people, I would say, you got to look at, hey, is it going to be break even? Is it going to cost me $100 a month? Can I afford that? But you got to remember, you bought $50,000 worth of equity, right? Mm-hmm. Even if the market takes a 10% hit, it's not going to matter, right? So that's kind of to answer your question. I'm not taking on things that are $500 a month negative or anything like that. But it's really, most of our stuff is probably in the $200 to $500 a month cash flow. But you got to remember where we purchase. So if I take it today, when we're looking at things, if you bought a $220,000 house and you put 20% down based on rates and everything, and it rents for $1,400 a month, after property management fees and everything else, you're still cash flowing about $200 a month, even in that price range right now. Once you get over that $250 range, you're going to struggle to cash flow on it based on cash down and what it does on a monthly basis. So short term, these things don't necessarily apply in short term. If you can buy a condo, hopefully it doesn't have a pool in it. If you can buy a condo at 60 cents on the dollar that has a tenant in it for the next year, That's a great thing to go, well, I'm going to buy that with hard money. It's going to be negative, but I've got 40% equity in it, and I'll use it to sell down the road. Right? Whether it's selling it as is, selling it with tenant in place, that's some of the stuff that we look at. Maybe I'm buying a bigger home. I'm trying to think of some of the stuff that we have right now. I'll give you an idea. It's also the structure of the deal. So for instance, you meet a seller. Say you meet a seller and the house is worth $220. Okay? It's in an HOA, it has a tile roof, it's all the things, and it's rented below market. It's all the things I told you not to buy. But that seller's willing to sell it to you at 75 cents on the dollar and carry the note at 7%, interest only, for 5 years. You think that's a good deal?
Yes.
You think that's willing to take on, these liabilities for that? Yeah, because you bought a spread, and you bought it with no money down, and somebody else is carrying the note. Like, you don't have to do anything after that. So now you look at, okay, well, I'm willing, based on the numbers, to take that on because there's an equity spread, it's creative financing, it's those types of things. And then let's talk about flips. What do you guys think the average amount of money is that people are making on flips right now? Profit.
40.
40?
15.
You're about spot on with where we're at right now. Here's what people do, especially our community. I just wanted an eraser. Okay. Everybody has seen, hey, look at me and a $100,000 check, right?
Have a tissue.
Perfect. I thought it was because I was crying. Thank you. Everybody's seen those Instagram videos. I mean, they're super clever, right? The big check. They're bragging about it. What they don't show is that most of that money was repair money being reimbursed at end. That's what ours show. I mean, I've got some big checks sitting in the office, but geez, $100,000 of that's got to go back for the repairs that we put into the property. So nobody really shows that. And you also have to look at when I look at my structure, I'm no different than an investor that I represent, and here's why. Some agents be like, yeah, I made $20,000. Okay. They were putting tile in the house. We've all seen the agents that are, doing their own flips. You're much better off doing open houses than putting tile on walls. Guaranteed, you're going to make more money. If you're budgeting properly, you have to pay all these people. You, the agent. Okay? I pay my team 4% commission on everything that we do. They're all bonused off of that. That's got to go in to run the business. We have a CFO, we have an operations manager, I have agents that are on salary. That has to go in there, right? So if I'm paying 4%, they're the contractor. If you think my wife is free, you are sadly mistaken. Okay? So you have one of two choices. You can pay a contractor, or you can manage it yourself. Managing yourself is a lot of work. I mean, you can't do multiples when it comes down to that. You're on one project following it through. It's also time. So you got to think about what your time is valued at. Has anybody done like your quarterly, hourly rate based on what you want to make this year?
No, not yet.
So the way you do that is you go through and you say, hey, I want to make $100,000 this year and I want to work 40 hours a week. And you go through and you divide that out and figure out what your quarterly, hourly rate is. That's going to determine what type of work you are going to do. Okay? If you're worth $100 an hour, you probably shouldn't be doing $15 an hour work, right? This conversation my dad and I always say. And then you get really aggravated when you do it and you go to Starbucks and you see the same person waiting in line over and over again when you run in and grab your coffee because you mobile ordered and they still haven't figured that out. Like, has anybody ever thought about the math on that? I have multiple times. I've posted on it. Okay? 50 weeks a year, 6 days a week, 10 minutes a day in line is 2.8 days, hours, 24-hour days in line at Starbucks. It is 3 full 8-hour working days.
Wow.
That's how much your coffee costs. And the funny thing is, Starbucks made the app so it would be more convenient for you. So I always find it funny when people are standing in there because they don't equate. And it's even worse at Dutch Brothers. My kids are Dutch Brother kids, so I'm always trying to teach them. So we sat in line, we got their coffee, and we sat at the patio table. Saturday morning, it's double line all the way out the back. We timed the car in the back, and we waited until they left. 48 minutes they sat in the drive-thru line for a $5 cup of coffee. Now equate that to what my time is worth.
It's the culture.
It is the culture.
But
For Dutch, it is for
It's a freaking,
that age.
that's $1,000 coffee for me. Oh, thank
From
you.
their corporate headquarters.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Oh, it's totally culture. I get it. Drives me crazy, but I go with my kids every Friday morning. We have a coffee date there, and they get all this weird. I don't even know what they get.
Tutti frutti.
Yeah, Red Bull. Yeah. So anyway, so now you've got the contractor. Does anybody know on average what a contractor charges for their project management and those types of things?
10%.
It's 20 to 25%. Well, I might be paying too much. Okay. My wife's on steroids though. I don't have to do the design. I don't have to do the shopping. I don't have to look at it during the process. She gets numbers. She goes to town. So her company has to get paid because she has employees and expenses. And then you come down to, guess what? The investor, which is me. Okay? You are 3 different people, or there's 3 different things you're budgeting for. So my goal when I do it, which is super slim, is to make 10 grand. But I'm also paying me as the real estate agent as well. So that's where you see some of these agents like, I make 20 grand. Well, it depends on how they paid themselves. I split it up into multiple assets. And the reason being is that is tax purpose as well. There's different tax ramifications for different things. And you know, if you flip, it's ordinary income. It's taxed at the same rate that your real estate commissions are. So if you're in the 20 to 30% tax bracket, that 10 grand is getting taxed at whatever that is. That's why, you know, when you look at that stuff, it depends on how you structure based on your tax liability and ramification. Flipping is hard. I'll give you guys just a couple of different things on the flips that we've learned. We have done 506 to date in the last 5 years. We manage anywhere between 16 and 20 projects at a time. And it is a lot of moving parts. We don't buy way out in the East Valley, and one of the reasons we keep our crews tight because they've got to be able to go from one house to the next and stay close. And it's usually out on the west side. You know, we stay between typically I-17, north of Northern. We get a few oddballs depending on the deal. If you're going to do a flip, you need to make sure and really know your numbers. But here's some of the other stuff that the flips provide, and this is one of the reasons that we do so many and we run on such tight margins. A flip, typically, if you're working it the right way, it should provide 1 to 2 leads a month that you convert to something else. Okay? My mortgage payment on a $200,000 house at 8% is like $1,200 a month. You're not getting 2 solid leads out of Zillow for $1,200 a month, right? So a lot of times I tell my team and my staff, I'm like, hey, if you can convert 2 leads a month on that house, I won't sell it. I'll keep the sign in it for the next 12 months. If you're going to do open houses every day, knock yourself out. I'll keep it. Unless somebody, you know, wants to come in with some stupid offer, and then we'll think about it. But the flips do generate income, but there's also, we have a system and a flow to it. You lose the most money on a flip by going gangbusters on it. And this is what happens. Have anybody represented a buyer on a flip recently? No? Okay. Most flippers go in and do the pretty. And they don't do it very pretty at the end of the day. It's usually kind of choppy, design-wise, finish-wise, because it's a quick in and out.
Mm-hmm.
What they don't do is they don't have any standards from the standpoint of what do we need to check on the systems before we tear into this and make a mess. And so we had one on Virginia, close to downtown Phoenix. We always start when we buy something, because we don't do inspections or anything, that's all risk. We buy something, depending on age, we have sewer scoped, we have AC inspections, we have roof inspections, and we get all the major components in. That particular house, before we started it, it ended up with $20,000 worth of sewer problems. It was completely caved in 4 different places. And so we got out, and full disclosure, by the way, that was not undisclosed sale when it came down to it. We actually turned around and sold it as is, and we made $5,000. We were out. We disclosed the sewer line. They were going to take on. It was an owner occupant. We still had to pay another agent because we didn't MLS. So it sucked. But can you imagine going through and doing a kitchen and bathrooms and then finding out you have to go back in and tear it all up? That's what happens. So if you're not prepared for those types of things, same thing with the rental properties. Before we tear into anything, sewers get scoped. Especially the older homes, you can probably gauge it 1970 and older. Hey, this is where I need a sewer scope. It's $200. It's so worth it. And so we start an as-is process. So here's kind of the timeline for our flips. First 30 days, it's as-is. It goes in Zillow for sale by owner. For the first week, you'll get a bunch of wholesalers that have cash, and then they'll go away. The next week, you'll get some agents that specialize in Maryville, live in Scottsdale. And then you'll finally start getting some general leads out of it. So you have sign in the yard, you have leads coming from Zillow, and it's a great place to start. It's on Facebook as is. What it is a lead generator. It's not meant to sell the house. Now, if you sell it, sometimes you don't have to put money into it. We've made good money on stuff that we've sold as is to some homeowner that wants to do it themselves, those types of things. So don't ever hesitate to go, wait, yeah, go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, sorry.
So on getting the sewer scope, is there a certain year cutoff date?
1970. Usually in 1970 and below, your potential to have cast iron or clay is pretty good.
Okay.
And those are the 2 biggest culprits of, because the cast iron rusts and the clay just collapses. And anytime you see in the houses, 2 things. We have 2 in Phoenix right now where the sewers come from the alley. So anytime you have big trees in the backyard, big trees in the front yard, those are things that are potentials for sewer problems because roots grow into them, those types. So anytime we see the trees, it's a start, and so the camera it's so super expensive to keep you from having damages financially later on. Where was I?
Talking about the process of who you're going to get first week.
Right, so we do the as-is process, and we do the as-is process because I want final numbers from the contractor. They've gone through, they've given me a complete scope, all the inspections they've done, and I know my numbers, and here's why. I don't want any surprises because I'm pegging based on today's market what I could sell that house for, not 3 months from now. So don't ever look at anything from future value or doing the market should appreciate 3 to 5% in that time. Like, don't do that. If you can sell it repaired pretty close to where comps are at today, then you should be safe. If you start gauging on what potential future is, now we've gotten super lucky on some of them. We're like, oh, this is taking forever, and then we get a big bonus on it, So just look at those future things of this is where, and don't take the high comp. That's a mistake that we took on a couple of them. The one that we lost $50,000 on, we took high comp. And my wife was emotionally attached to it because it was our next door neighbor's house that we purchased from that. And so we wanted our neighborhood to look really good, and it wasn't a good investment. But we could have sold that one and made 30 and as is, instead we lost 50. You see the spread there?
Oh, wow.
So that's where you consciously look at things and take the trial. And if you can take, hey, it's risk versus reward. In that first 30 days, you're going to make 10, 15 grand and not do anything to it? Peace out. See ya. No work, no fuss, no muss, no what happens if the market changes, right? That's, excuse me, geez. That's the important part when you look at that stuff. And like I said, flips are gambling. So now you go through the next process, which is, okay, what happens for the next 90 days? Or actually it's usually 60 days, most of our stuff, unless we're doing a major overhaul. We're 60 days of trying to sell that house prior to it being done. So we do some pre-construction open houses. We do some of those things on Facebook. Right now I've actually started the process of filming once a week the process of the property. so that you're posting it on Facebook and then people are following it on YouTube, the progress of it, and so it may catch somebody's eye. So again, we're trying to lead generate out of these things. It's not just something that we're flipping for profit. I want the leads out of it, because listings control the market at the end of the day. The buyers are looking in Zillow, they're looking on Redfin, and if you own that house, you control what you get to do with it. And then we go into, once it's finished, doing neighborhood reveal before we go to MLS, inviting neighbors. A lot of times, great ways to do that stuff is we do design open houses. So we kind of showcase the neighborhood, what we did to the house, more so looking for maybe some extra work for my wife, or showing them what could be done, or hey, we'll trade houses. You give me your old outdated one and we'll take the new one. So that's just some of the ways that we run through our flips. But again, you've got to be prepared. If you're going to put something on black or red, you've got to be prepared to financially be able to stomach if something goes bad. And that's why I try to tell people that the flips are not the best thing in the world to get into. Now, if you buy something at 50 cents on the dollar, knock yourself out. Do it. But if you're buying on margins like mine, that's scary just experience-wise. So, it's a caution right now. I would rather see you focused on your long-term plan and being prepared for something you could flip eventually when it arises, rather than hunting it. And I will tell you right now that if you guys will add to your, how many times do you guys post in Facebook, Instagram? We don't even have Instagram, so you're out. That's right, I didn't like 2 years ago, so I'm late to the game.
Every day.
Every day? What do you post typically?
Various things, personal stuff, business stuff. I just mix it up, stuff that's happening in the community.
Right, okay. Some of the things for you guys to see that has worked very well for me, and again, it's creating opportunities for your business. A lot of my posts tell stories and solving problems, not necessarily that we bought the house. Sometimes I kind of, fake it like, hey, I found an investor to pay cash for this house, solve my client's problem. I learned that last year we were doing so much posting about flipping that some of my clients thought we weren't doing real estate anymore. So I'm like, crap, can't win here. So you got to be careful with how you're doing it, but you also don't want to be a secret agent at the end of the day. We were kind of talking, some of you guys that were in the mastermind before, is that I don't necessarily, this is my opinion again, I think that our industry has overwhelmed Facebook and Instagram with I sold, I listed, the team you choose matters, don't let Zillow steal your equity. Like, don't post that stuff. It doesn't do anything for what you're doing, and it doesn't keep the client's eye on the ball, which is you, and what you're doing for people. But again, solving problems, which is, hey, we found a cash investor for this, and we solved the problem, and we helped our clients get here. If you ever need a solution like this, because if somebody does know that you can provide or connect the dots, and guess what, by the way, you always have a cash investor offer from here. Like, hey, I'm going to this house, I need a cash offer. Okay. It takes all of 2 seconds. And I understand that Zillow and OfferPad and all those other guys, but the point being is that if you can provide that and you start showing it, people know it, that's where majority of the homes that I've purchased have come from, is from relationships with agents and lenders, and it's just because they know that I can go in and I do it the right way, and you solve for it. Doesn't mean you have to be the buyer, but they need to know that you can solve for it. Then you get to compete with everybody else out there. I mean, does anybody else notice the amount of companies all of a sudden that are running Facebook ads with national cash offer? And I mean, there's like a zillion of them right now. So they're all over the place. What's funny is that people think this is new. We Buy Ugly Homes has been around forever. They're the ones that started it. The caveman. So your clients need to know you can provide that solution. So if some of your posts provide some of that, make sure you're doing it, because then again, it's another avenue that it's not just a traditional side of real estate. And I also encourage you guys, if you look through some of my stuff, it's kind of like, taking from class today, 5 things not to buy in your long-term investment. Post that. I've done a lot more of trying to add value, because when somebody knows, oh, well, you know something about investing. Hey, I've been thinking about buying an investment property. Those are things that are going to create and generate traffic. The I sold, I listed, I don't know that generates a lot of traffic when it comes down to, it might generate some likes and some things like that, but I don't know that it's generating the traffic that you really want versus the adding value. People know that you're doing those things. Take some Instagram stories or Facebook. I'm out looking at rental properties today. Have you thought about investing? It doesn't have to be, or asking the question, hey, do you think it's actually kind of funny, even for as many people as know what I do, when I ask a question. Hey, do you think a pool is a good idea for an investment property? And 40 people respond. You're like, okay. It's engagement though. Mm-hmm. You start engaging and it helps, because then you start seeing people like, yeah, I'm interested, and the post, so you spend a lot of time posting back and forth, but it does create engagement with people. And the investment side, believe it or not, there are a ton of people that want to know how to invest. There are a ton of people in your sphere, and there's a ton of people in your sphere that have money, that are willing to do loans and be lenders. That's where we've created our hard money sources, is through our clientele. We've asked them, what kind of rates of return are you getting? Do you guys still have some retirement, like pension-wise, those types of things? Is it in just standard 401k or whatever it is that? Okay. So I'm gonna ask you a question, not to put you on the spot, and it depends on how detailed. Do you know what kind of rate of return you get on average per year?
I don't.
Okay. I only say that because 99% of people, when you ask that question, they have no idea what kind of rate of return they're getting. And when they go back and look, most of them don't realize that their cap rate is what their return on investment is over the year. They don't realize that by the time a money manager takes their fees out and what their actual rate of return is closer to that 4 to 5%. And so we've taken a lot of clients and shown them how to turn their 401ks into self-directed IRAs where they can invest in real estate through them. And they can do hard money loans out of them. And so we have a good friend of ours that's a firefighter. They've got quite a bit of money from when his wife was in the pharmaceutical business. He had no idea what kind of rate of return they were getting. And so by the time we looked at it, it was 4% annually. We moved it into self-directed, and now he's a private money lender for me at 8%, and I'm giving him double the rate of return he was getting out of his 401k.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mine isn't like that. It's like PERS or STIRS. It's
Right.
pension. So
Right, it's pension.
It's what I get every year.
Yeah.
And it's always the same, except for the 2% COLA raise every year.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because yours is a little different. But the point is that a lot of people, like when you're talking to the average person, and that's conversations I like to have with people.
Yeah.
When somebody owns a house free and clear, they're selling it, where are they going with their money? Mm-hmm. What if I could show you how to get an 8% guaranteed rate of return on your money? That's how we started in the investment game, is by talking to people about what it was. And it's fun because they're secured by a property with a deed of trust and a note, and there's equity in it. So they really can't get hurt at the end of the day. Even if the market goes down, it's going to come back up, it turns into cash flow, whatever the case may be. So those are just some of the interesting facts when it comes down to the investment side and what to be prepared for and what to look for. Questions that I can answer? No?
Is it true that as a realtor you have to use all our approved real estate forms as an investor, or can you use your own little contracts?
I have my own contracts for wholesaling. It was funny this morning, I had an agent that brought me a deal and they wanted a wholesale contract, and she sent me one and it was my contract. She said, can you fill this out? I'm like, that's my contract. So yeah, I use a 3-page simple contract.
Okay.
You're not required. So that's a really good question depending on what you're wanting to do. So if you were to talk to Larry and you're new, You might want to do an AAR contract and run it through the brokerage because you have E&O insurance.
Okay.
Okay? Even though you're buying it owner occupied, I don't because I'm the buyer. So the reality is, disclosure wise, all that other stuff, I don't have an E&O when I buy it. The reality is there's not going to be anything to cover anyway. Because what's going to happen is it's not an E&O claim when somebody comes back and says, well, you stole my house. It's going to be bigger than that at the end of the day.
Okay.
And that's just when attorneys get involved. Now, selling the houses, everything goes to the brokerage.
Okay.
And, you know, on our flips, we full disclose. All these guys that flip houses, like, never lived there, don't know anything about it. Yeah, right.
You know more about
You
it
know
than
more about it than
anybody
anybody.
else. Mhm.
So we do full seller disclosure statements. Everything's filled out, invoices are attached. Here it is. And then we run everything through the brokerage because I want that E&O insurance on the selling side. You don't save much money by not running it through the brokerage.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Everybody run out and buy an investment property today. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
What was your IG handle again?
It's Steve D. Valentine.
You posted on Facebook you're gonna start,
Yes.
what is that gonna start on?
So we're trying to line up dates. There's going to be a sign-up form that goes out shortly. I will tell you guys what it's going to be. We are going to run a group of agents. It'll be $297 per person. It's a 6-month, basically. We're going to start with demo day. That should be the fun part. And we're going to go through a flip with my wife and I from start to finish.
Oh, right on.
So,
Are you doing that through that Facebook post that you did?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes, there'll be a sign-up landing page that goes out to collect information that'll go out for the sign-up. There's some other things there that we're doing in an exclusive Facebook group where Wendy and I will be posting, doing Q&As on it, and then doing some meetups over there as well to kind of go through where it is. This one's actually a big one because we're adding 200 square foot to it. We have to go through the permit process, and she's adding a bedroom and bathroom inside the current floor plan and converting it to more of a conventional great room floor plan. It's right over at 22nd Street and Hearn. And so we thought it'd be a really good one to get people to really see. Because a lot of people teach like, oh, yeah, you want to flip. The mess in the middle is what nobody can really teach. And so it's where Wendy shops, why she's doing what. I mean, that's not my part. But it's also going through as we're doing and sharing some of the structures that we've set in place for our agents to do and marketing them in Facebook and how we're lead generating. And then there'll be a reveal party at the end of it exclusively for those people so they can see it. We'll have a party there and see what it looks like. Hard hats, waivers required, all that good stuff. We'll turn the power off, but yeah. So we just kind of want to make it fun and really show people what it entails because it is a lot of work. It's more than I think most people think. But there's also a lot of, Wendy has extreme vision when it comes down to things. And what this is also going to do, this is where the value add is that how many of you are good at looking at things comp-wise when you look at something that's remodeled versus something that's not when you're trying to go back and forth with values? Like how do you put a value on that, right? Mm-hmm. So this particular course is going to take you through construction costs, like what we budget for, because what that's going to do when you're with clients, both with buyers, when they're like, oh, I wonder what it would cost to remodel this kitchen. You're going to kind of know what that looks like, what we budget for, how we do it, why we do it, and what our costs are, and the variance in costs. And it's, it's kind of funny, like the little things, even for as many as we did or have done, I didn't realize until about 18 months ago when I'm looking at a 1,200 square foot house we remodeled versus a 2,000 square foot, and I'm trying to figure out why there's only a $5,000 or $6,000 difference. And my wife finally looked at me, she's like, a kitchen's a kitchen, a bath is a bath, and the only discrepancy between the two is the square footage, which is flooring and paint. So it's kind of funny when you look at it, you're like, well, this smaller house should be this. Well, actually, you'd be amazed at this is what it looks like. And that house, we're probably going to be, our budget, I think, is $120,000 on. Okay. So we're going through holding costs, where we got the deal, how we got the money for it, all of it from start to finish so that you can really see the mess in the middle.
I'm excited.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. I'm excited to do it. So.
Awesome.
I mentioned building a story brand too, as a book. And guys, I think there's this other one too called Storyworthy. Is a really good book that I recommend. We've gone so far into the social media side of things that you've got to figure out how to capture people's attention. And so if you think about things, it's capturing the attention through humor and through story. And that's where we kind of go through. Did anybody capture or see my spoof video about team leaders in real estate on Facebook?
I think I did.
That was fun to do. Because most agents, they get in, they join a team, and they just think the team lead is forcing them to do stuff. So we had Josh out there flipping signs or spinning signs, and
Yeah.
so yeah. All right, guys. If I can do anything for you, please reach out.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How many days a week would that be, Steve?
So it's really the initial day is really the big day with demo day and all that stuff, and we're going to go through numbers in neighborhood, and then most of it's going to be done via Facebook closed group. So when you'll be posting video there from that, and we'll be doing some live Q&A inside it. So that, and then we'll be doing a couple of visits where we'll say, hey, we're going to be here for this hour. Come walk through this stage. We're at framing. We're at permit. And so it'll be a couple of things, then the reveal party. But it's really so that all of it's captured. The group won't close down, so you can always go back to revisit those posts and that content.
Oh, perfect, because we're up in Prescott.
Oh, okay. Got it.
No ways away.
Come down, bring your hammer.
Yeah, we will, thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm Steve, by the way.
Nicole.
Nice to meet you, Nicole.
Nice to meet you.
You have the karaoke bar.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I've had my license for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Actually, I was on the S4 team
Okay.
when I first started,
Yep.
just because I wanted so much
Yep.
and stuff.
Yep.
What's that?
And and I had to take a job. Got restaurants.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I took events. I have a venue to use. And